In the beginning, there was DC Comics, and then the great Marvel was created. But no one was prepared for the cultural or comical reset of 1992, when a little independent comic book company would storm the scene and change the game forever.
It's time for the moment you've been waiting for.
That's right, folks. Today we're talking about Image Comics, or more specifically, this guy right here, Invincible. One of my favorite shows of 2021. Present company excluded, of course. But I've already exposed my adoration for the witch and the android in another video. Y'all can go watch it. Actually, go do that right now. I'll wait. I'll be right here. Yeah. But no, today we're talking about Invincible. Why else would I be wearing the same superhero color scheme in my street clothes like I'm 5 seconds away from saying? But before we talk about this amazing comic and somehow even better show, we need to go all the way back to the beginning. So let's get started. Founded in 1992, Image Comics grew to be the third largest successful comic book and graphic novel publisher. Image Comics is famous for doing things like The Walking Dead or Kick-Ass, or obviously the aforementioned Invincible. The comic book genre spanned from all sorts of things, from horror to sci-fi to action-adventure, even mystery crime. You might be wondering why this genre was so vast and why Image Comics chose to tackle so many different things. There's a great reason for that, and we'll get into that in a little bit. Now, Image Comics was started by 7 different men, who all, coincidentally enough, started off working for Marvel. It was Todd McFarlane, Eric Larson, Mark Silvestri, Rob Liefeld, Jim Lee, Wilsh Portacio, and Jim Valentino. All 7 men were frustrated with the ways in which Marvel was handling their clients. They wanted to start a venue of creator-owned properties where comics creators could publish material of their own creation without having to give up their copyright to those properties. Their idea to leave started as a small dream, but later grew into something much more serious. As problems continued to worsen at Marvel, several of the men took things into their own hands.
Marvel Entertainment fell 3 1/4 today, closing at 49 1/2. 8 artists are jumping ship for a competitor. Some investors did the same.
With Todd McFarlane leading the way, they finally built up the head of steam, stormed into Marvel's CEO office, and told them they're leaving. Now, a lot of these creators had already built up a famous reputation for penning comics such as Spider-Man and X-Men and Guardians of the Galaxy. So these particular illustrators leaving the company would be major. The particular gripe of all the men came down to Marvel's work-for-hire practices and policies. Work for hire, meaning that the illustrators didn't own any of their creative licenses for the properties that they contributed to. So fed up with this process, the 7 freelance illustrators left and never looked back. Actually, that's not really true. Several of them returned later to Marvel to work with them. But that's not what we're talking about right now.
We went there with 4 to take the meeting, and before we get to the meeting, we add 3, we're at 7.
We were going to go into Marvel and basically say, like, look, we're out of here. We don't like working for you.
Here's our reasons for it. And we're not demanding anything. We're just giving you information. We don't have to.
It's mostly Todd basically said, no, we're leaving for sure. And I'm like, wait a second. I thought we were here to negotiate. But at the end of the day, it was the right move.
I went for the fireworks. It's the funniest meeting I ever attended in comics.
After the meeting with the Marvel executives and they finally told them they were going to quit, they went across the street to DC Comics, not looking for a job, but however, looking to tell them the exact same thing, that they're not going to work for them. I just think that's so cool.
You guys also went to DC.
That's right.
You went across town
this
to
is
DC.
This is the stranger part of the story. So right after
How did you end up with a meeting at DC?
So then I think the next day we decided, hey, we should go over to DC and tell them the same thing. And they said, Jim, you should come with us.
They thought they hit the mother lode. right? Jim Lee, who'd never stepped foot in DC up to that point, they knew what this meant. Oh my God, we're getting Jim Lee and Todd and Rob. Oh my God. I mean, they thought like, oh, woo. And so quickly they assembled a meeting, and it was in a big room, and there was probably 20 of the editors and executives there, and they were like licking their chops going, thank you, comic God. And we had to break their hearts real quickly going, oh, by the way, we're here to tell you, not that we're going to come work for you, but to basically tell you that we just quit Marvel. We're not going to work for you either. And there was this lead ball that came into the room, like, you're coming here and bringing Jim Lee, who's never been here before, to tell us you're not working for us? That's why you're here? This is exactly why we're here.
All the men came up with their own independent company and decided to call it Image. Image's original mission statement had two key charters. One, Image would not own any of the creators' work. The creators would. And two, no Image partner would interfere creatively or financially with any other partner's work. The first Image comics to be put on shelves were Liefield's Youngblood, Lee's Wildcats, McFarlane's Spawn, and Larson's The Savage Dragon. Within just a few months, Image title's success led to having almost 10% of the North American comic market share, briefly exceeding DC Comics. In the early to mid 90s, Image was on top of the world, selling out comics left and right. It's like nothing that they put out could miss. However, what goes up most inevitably goes down. And it was around the mid to late 90s, shortly after the comic boom, Image for the first time slipped below 300,000 sales. Now, remember I mentioned Valentino becoming less active in the earlier days of Image's inception? In 1999, he took that hands-off opportunity to seek out other content creators with distinct different personalities and styles, which led to the different genres that Image had become so popular for today. Prior to this, Image was routinely putting out superhero comics, primarily focused on the Caped Crusaders. However, Valentino made a deliberate attempt to diversify Image's, image. Valentino would later go on to take over the role as lead publisher. Diversifying Image's output would later go on to prove successful, after Marvel and DC later followed suit and publishing more creator-owned work. Image Comics leaves behind a legacy of providing creators with no content restrictions and forking over control of publishing rights to the creators themselves. Walking Dead obviously blew up from the boom of cross-media content, video games, toys, TV shows, and even scoring a movie with 2010's Kick-Ass. But in my humble opinion, the most successful, most interesting, most cool addition to Image's franchise was, Invincible is about a kid named Mark Grayson. He has a father who just happens to be the most powerful person in the world, kind of akin to Superman. Like Superman, his dad is alien, but in the show they call them Viltrumites, so that makes Mark half Viltrumite. His mom, Debbie, acts as the kind of heart of the show because she is constantly throughout the series bringing Mark back down to earth, metaphorically and literally. And throughout the series we get to see how the relationship between Mark, his parents, and his friends develop. Mark is a great main character, but he is not very invincible. As you can see, just go watch one episode and you'll see why. But at least that's very accurate to the comics. The name is meant to be ironic, and it's kind of a nod to his dad, Omni-Man, who actually is invincible, seriously. Even though Mark has the same powers as his dad, he's still not as powerful as a Viltrumite. And we get to see in the comics other Viltrumites that come to Earth, and that might be a spoiler, but read the comics. The show changed many different things about the comic book originally. It changed genders and races, Invincible, or Mark Grayson's best friend, William's sexuality. In the comics, William was a closeted character that even dated Adam Eve for a short time, but eventually came out. However, in the series, William is out and proud from the very beginning, and I love it. Mark's mom, Debbie, has a more interesting role in the show versus the comics. The comics had Debbie playing a more demure, more docile character versus the show making her a more interesting, more thought-provoking character that you can empathize with. Another character dramatically changed that a lot of people hated was Mark's girlfriend Amber. I don't understand the hate that Amber got. Amber being more of just the love interest, nothing more. Later on in the comics she would develop more of a character, but the show's adaptation of Amber had her interesting right from the start. She had a personality. She wasn't afraid to push back when Mark wouldn't show up for a particular date. The controversy coming when the audience realizes that Amber knew about Mark's secret identity the whole time. However, I think a lot of the show's audience blew this way out of proportion, acting like Amber's reaction to Mark coming out to her as a hero was unwarranted. Amber just wanted Mark to tell her the truth, and she didn't care whether that be because he was secretly saving the world or not. He wasn't honest with her, and that was kind of the point. What initially struck me with this show was the animation. The fight scenes are fluid. You really feel the punches, which you can rarely say for different animations. The fights are done in a more video game-esque style, which I can really appreciate. It's fast-paced, it's in your face, and it's awesome. Another great thing about this show is the cast. The cast is spectacular. The cast includes great names like J.K. Simmons playing the role of Omni-Man, or Sandra Oh playing Deborah, Mark's mom. For the community fans, Gillian Jacobs is in it playing Adam Eve.
Oh, Britt is in this?
And even the legend himself, Mark Hamill, makes an appearance. Another big difference between the show and the comics is the audience knows about Omni-Man the entire time, but everyone else doesn't. In the show, Cecil knows, or has at least a hunch throughout the entire series. It's really hard to talk about this show without getting into any spoilers, and I'm assuming you are gonna go watch it after you turn off this video, right? But all I'll say is Omni-Man's a bad parent, man. Why? I also, for some reason, love the character Damien Darkblood. Not only does he serve as a helpful hand in Debbie's character development and showing and helping things along the way, but also his concept is just kind of cool. He's a demon that escapes from hell and has to prove himself loyal to stay on the surface world. And as we see in detail in the show, that's a bit of a problem. In the comics, Damien Darkblood's character takes up 2 pages. And that's it. In the show, he's not there to the finale, but he actually provides something which I really like. One of my favorite characters in the show was Adam Eve. Her powers are so cool, and I am kind of obsessed with her. She can rearrange molecules on a subatomic level, and I think how the show animates them and shows how she uses her powers in different ways is really creative and so cool. Invincible also has like one of the best villain catalog. It rivals Batman's villains. Like, they're so great. There's Battle Beast, who in the comics is just as ruthless as he is in the show. And the comics, his entire story arc is just trying to find an honorable death. There's the Muller twins, who have a slightly bigger role in the TV show. They're clones, but one might not be. So there was an original that made a clone, and then one keeps getting killed off. They look exactly alike, but neither one knows who's the real clone. That's a great story arc. There's also Titan, played by Mahershala Ali, who doesn't have a super big role in the comics. Actually, it's relatively small, but in the show, he takes over Robot Head, another great name, and eventually becomes this super big mob boss. His powers are like a mix of Emma Frost and Korg from Thor Ragnarok. He forms a hard shell around his body, but as you see in the show, it breaks away after he takes hard-hitting blows. The first season is just scratching the surface of everything that goes completely bonkers in Invincible. And this show is great, and you should go watch it. And if you like comics, go read the Invincible comic. You won't regret it. I might go watch the show again. That's just how good it is. Each episode is an hour long, so make sure you space out some time for it. But till next time, guys, thanks for watching the video. Remember, please like, subscribe, comment, and I'll see y'all next week. See y'all later.